2022. Tonight we will continue our study session series on growth to examine the issues and the impacts of the growth in the city of Peoria, which in fact was 24% since the last census. So we will begin with Neighborhood and Human Services. Mr. Tyne.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. That's right. Growth is a frame of mind for us as we develop all of our budget processes. And in preparation of this year's budget adoption, we'll have a number of city departments that will offer their strategic progress in a series of study sessions here over the next couple of months. And as discussed in the last session, we plan to update Council on each of the department's goals, their stated outcomes, upcoming opportunities and challenges, and some notable budget requests that we anticipate for the upcoming year. And so as our guinea pigs, first up we do have Chris Hallett, our Director of Neighborhood and Human Services, as well as Kelly Kincaid, the Deputy Director of Neighborhood and Human Services, to go through the presentation. I'll pass it to Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Tyne. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Kelly and I are both thrilled to be here to share some of our outcomes and successes we've had since we were last in front of you about a year ago. So we'll jump into it. For our agenda, we're going to be overseeing what the department is, so we'll familiarize you with our mission and vision and goals, and then dive into some of the success outcomes hopefully will resonate with you and you've seen over the course of the year. We'll outline some of the trends and pressure points we've experienced during that time as well, which will help formulate the budget requests that you will see at the end of March, I believe. Again, this slide should look a little familiar to you. We did this when we first presented as a new department a couple of years ago. And we really feel our mission and vision embody the livability goals, specifically of healthy neighborhoods and superior public services, I should say. We look to do this through increased response times, enhanced service levels, customer satisfaction, decreased complaints, cycle times, and negative impacts on our community. Kelly's going to walk through some of the slight changes you may have seen or heard about in our department, as well as jump into one of the First Division's outcomes and trends.
Thank you, Chris, and hello, Mayor and Council. As Chris stated, I'd like to review our department structure. Our department org chart, first we'd kind of like to start with Erin Camaretta. She is our management assistant, and she is amazing. And so through this presentation, we will be giving some shout outs because we have some awesome staff to be able to recognize during our presentation. And then starting with our divisions, business services, we have Maria Calcaterra, which is also in the audience. And she continues to serve 3 departments, Neighborhood and Human Services, Parks and Recreation, and Arts, Culture, and Library Services. Our code compliance manager, of course, again, Jack Strout has retired, if you all weren't aware. Definitely will miss him, but has been a tremendous, huge part of our success over the past several years and the entire years that he has been here with Peoria. Then we have Karen Imig, which is also in the audience, which leads our Community Assistance and Engagement Division, and then Sherry Still, Family and Youth Services. This makes up our amazing team, and to do our job, you've given us a FY22 operating budget of about $13,700,000, along with 40.75 FTEs, 216 part-time non-benefited positions, all whom continuing do an amazing rock star superior public service each and every day. They're out there serving our residents. Now I'd like to review some amazing outcomes that we've been able to accomplish since we last were here updating you. I'm going to start with our Family and Youth Services Division, again led by Sherry Still, which is our manager. We have had some really good successes and outcomes over the past year. We've been able to develop and maintain several partnerships at the Community Center and Resource Center. We currently have 20+ partners at the Community Center and Resource Center, always looking for new opportunities to fill any gaps in service that we find along the way. Initiatives supporting nonprofits and partnering, providing outreach and engagement opportunities to our residents to, again, fill any gaps and needs that are out there that we can continue to service. We also have some new partners that we would like to mention today, one in which is First Things First, which was a major partner in our most recently Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Service. And then we have a WellCare nonprofit that currently helps us and is a major partner sponsoring some of our senior bingo programs. The community center is open and trips have resumed and programs are bursting at the seams and all for our residents to be able to continue to partake. Continuing with our successes and outcomes, our resource center, as I mentioned earlier, we have 20 nonprofit agencies. This chart certainly shows in FY20 we served about 1,464, and in FY21 we had a slightly lower decrease of 1,411. However, what it does show, the very low income category, there was an increase over FY20 to FY21. And the very low family sizes, which means we are successfully serving those in needs of services. So this particular graph of information, I just want to pause for a moment just to let you look at the numbers and what we have been able to do as a city to provide some very needed resources during this pandemic time. We were one of the first cities to provide space to our partners for such a needed service such as COVID testing, vaccines, and at-home kits. Our COVID testing began in November of 2020 on city property. We took a short pause during the months of June, July, and August, and then we started back up in January. And our year-to-date totals for COVID testing are 211,271 to date. We have an outstanding partnership with Emory that has been with us from the very beginning, a very crucial partner, and has been able to continue to provide this much needed service to our residents. Our vaccines, we started a partnership with Albertson Safeway, and again, it has been amazing along the way to provide vaccines, and not only COVID vaccines when they were available, but flu shots and shingle shots, and just an array of resources that they've been able to provide. Our own Peoria Fire Department has also started administering vaccines. They started in January, and then they started clinics at the community center the first part of February. Our at-home kits started in December of 2021 with, again, another major partnership with Maricopa County. Again, we were able to cultivate that and collaborate with Maricopa County at the very beginning, which again just shows that our city is so much about collaborating and bringing much needed resources to our residents. On the youth services side, in the Family and Youth Services Division, certainly want to just talk a little bit about the Youth Advisory Board and the initiatives that they did supporting nonprofits during this past year. They partnered with the Heart Pantry, as well as D Squared, which is a homeless organization for homes for the homeless. Also on the youth services side, we've been able to operate 23 licensed child care programs on our Peoria Unified School District campuses. Our AM/PM Little Learners and summer camp programs remain open at sites and nearly providing care for about 1,000 students over the past year. Mayor and Council, you approved 2 grants that we received from one of our partners from the Department of Economic Security, one which was called the Child Care Workforce Retention and Recruitment Grant in the amount of $69,892. And then there was a Child Care Stabilization Grant that we could receive up to $4.5 million over the course until September of 2023. This next chart you've seen, I believe, a couple different times, but just wanted to go over it. We want to talk about some of our trends and pressure points that we've been experiencing in our youth program. The labor problem is not isolated to just City of Peoria. It is happening in surrounding cities and school districts and remains to be a nationwide issue. affecting daycares and transportation across the board, along with several other things. In January of 2020, we had about 216 part-time non-benefited staff employed. As of March 2020, we lost our entire workforce, part-time, non-benefit workforce, to the pandemic because schools went to online schools and weren't providing in the normal school setting. Currently, we're still down about 50% in that staffing, and as you can see with our service levels, we have about 946 on our waiting list, and we have 822 that are currently registered. With this next slide, I'd just like to take this opportunity to just showcase that our before and after school program, even though we may have some trends and pressure points, this is certainly a point of Peoria's pride and really one of the largest of its kind. It's rare to see such an extension of network providing care at all of the elementary schools within the Peoria Unified School District. We aren't aware that there are any other municipalities that does such an extended program such as we do here in our city and partnering with our school. It's largely due to the great working relationship that we have forged over the years with PUSD, and now hard at work working with Deer Valley Unified School District and charter schools to expand services at many schools that are willing and needing this essential service. As a result of the pandemic, we learned the true value of our programs. When the federal guidelines placed child care programs in the essential service category, which of course allowed so many Peoria residents to continue to work. This is great news on one hand, but also brings some pressure to the division to sustain and grow and with the diminishing workforce. The absence of the healthy labor pool, we had to rely on several different things that you see noted on this particular slide. Working with staff from other divisions, our partners, our grantors to attract, retain, consolidate programs, and share transportation models, and to continue offering such a valuable service to our residents. This was it, and there also was an increase in minimum wage to $12.80 effective January 1 of 2020. And in addition, with Prop 26, when Prop 26 was passed, in November of 2016, it also required employers to provide sick hours to part-time non-benefit staff, 1 hour per 30 hours worked. We'll be requesting a supplemental funding to consider that allows the Family and Youth Services Division to continue to maintain their service levels to our residents. So budget considerations. A large portion of our essential staff within our programs are in the part-time non-benefited category. Again, as I stated before, there was an increase in minimum wage effective January 1 of 2022. Which requires a budget ask. In addition, we are also asking for consideration Prop 206, passed in 2016 for sick hours. And then we also have a 21st Century grant that we partner with Peoria Unified School District that provides care at the Title I schools within Peoria, which is a completely 100% recovery. They do reimburse us for services that we do provide. And then we also are asking for an additional administrative staff position to be able to coordinate and track and report on all the information that I previously shared with you to be able to maintain what we're currently doing.
Any questions on that division before we move on to code compliance?
The additional position that you're asking, it says grant funded, is that just 100% repaid?
Yes, it'll be 100% paid through the grant. It is a one-time ask that we're asking for that particular position.
Any projections on when we might have more employees come back to work?
That's a good question.
It's a question everyone is asking these days.
Right. We certainly have, we are not where we were previously, of course, but we have seen a little bit of momentum with the ability to be able to increase the part-time non-benefit salaries due to the grant that we received from the Department of Economic Security. So we have been able to sustain. I wouldn't say we've been able to increase as much as we've liked, but we continue to work on ways to be able to do so.
Thank you. Did someone else have any comments? No? No? We're good? Thank you.
All right. On to Code Compliance Division. As you can see, we don't have the manager's name there. As Kelly mentioned, just earlier this month, Jack retired, so we're currently in the recruitment process for that position. Hope to have it filled soon. But Code, nonetheless, has had a very exciting year. Again, they're knocking it out of the park. If you remember, we presented over a year ago their first award that they received from the American Association of Code Compliance for their digital marketing on their Code 101, and they've done it 2 years in a row now with their Code Talks. I don't know if any of you had a chance to see them out on our YouTube station, but please do. They're such a creative group to go out there. They take it on the road. They talk to other departments. They go out in the community. It's a really innovative and way to engage with our neighborhood and all things code, just to get them wrapped around the subject matter. So kudos to them on their award. Our graffiti abatement program, I don't know if you remember, we last budget cycle, we asked for some outsourcing for that fund, and we have tremendous success with that. We have a very consistent, timely response. In fact, 95% of all the removals have happened within the 48 hours. So we have consistent service delivery at a fraction of the cost of what we were paying prior to that. So that's a huge success that we look to continue. We continue to meet with the Ad Hoc Code Subcommittee on many things that are impacting our community, one of which, if you remember, was the evolution of the extended RV permit pilot that we put out last January, which we hope to bring back in March after we have 12 months worth of data, but so far very successful. We're issuing about 7 permits per month, all with very high compliance rates. So we're really hearing positive things from the RV owners. It is still an issue for those who aren't using the permit, so we have more education outreach to do, obviously. And then if you've seen the skyline in the last year, you've seen there's a few less blighting structures amongst us due to our enhanced abatement program. It's been very successful. The lien capacity that the state statute affords us really is a motivator for property owners to demolish or come into compliance on their own nuisance buildings such as these. In fact, 2 of those 3 were demolished by the property owners themselves. In fact, we've had close to 100% success of owners taking care of their own properties. We've only demolished 2, one being the Smitty's commercial property, and I'll show you shortly 1 residential. And we've already recouped the lien on the residential property. So it's working. It really convinces people to take care of things themselves. It's much cheaper for them and quicker for us and better for the community. So some of the trends and pressure points we're seeing in the code compliance area, as you mentioned, Mayor, 24% increase just since the last time we hired a code officer in 2016. That's a substantial amount of households, single-family households that have been created in the community to absorb those increases. That obviously is going to have an impact on caseloads, related statistics when you have a fixed staff leveling. On occasion, we hear about the need for nights and weekends, and although our staff does adapt their schedules to adhere to some of these complaints, check them out, it might be an opportunity to look for an opportunity to see an enhanced approach to how we do code in the city. Sign enforcement. Early on in the pandemic, Mayor, you issued a executive order kind of releasing code enforcement on signs to really for the betterment of our small business and business community in a tough time when we had that severe closure. We're starting to see signs, littering, it's just, they're growing over time. There's no less signs, there's only more over time. So we're already beginning talks internally as to how we're going to address this, when's the right time to do it. We have an upcoming election, which puts a moratorium on signs anyways, but on the heels of that, we really think we're going to need some resources to be able to address that amongst the other things that we're talking about here today. Increased number of abandoned encampments. So you all have given us a lot of resources to be able to help our residents who are experiencing homelessness. And every time we are successful, sometimes there's some abandoned encampments and the property relative to that are left behind. And we've been doing a great, strong partnership with our friends in PD. They've amassed a listing of how many encampments we actually have out there, and the number can be quite alarming. But we don't really have any resources, so we're looking to you to be able to help in that area. and I think we can make some substantial progress. So you will see in the budget request coming up, a request for one new code officer. That is a one-time ask for a fixed term in order to be able to handle some of these increased number of households, caseload issues, some of the commercial and sign enforcement, also to explore the opportunity of a greater weekend presence. You'll see something on enhanced abatement in order to continue doing the demolitions and have the funds there when we need to, and this is the residential property on the northeast corner of 81st Avenue in Peoria. Councilmember Hunt is or was in your district. I haven't memorized the new lines yet, but this is already sold. As a result, I think, of our abatement, it quickly went up for sale and our lien was repaid. So we're whole on this property and it looks much nicer now. No dead trees and no dilapidated buildings. So we're looking for resources for that. And then again, along the lines of the abandoned encampments, money to be able to legally and respectfully treat the property left behind from our residents experiencing homelessness. And we have a great idea on how we can be able to do that. Any questions on code compliance budget considerations?
No,
All right,
no questions.
we'll move on to community engagement and assistance.
Okay, Community Engagement and Assistance Division is led by our very own Karen Imeg, and they have been very busy making a big difference in our community with those two divisions. Some of the successes that I'd like to highlight with Karen's division, the community engagement has seen a tremendous uptick since rolling out the city's manager's community engagement model, focusing heavily on relationship building and proactive outreach. This model has been introduced to all outwardly facing departments. In general, a lot of buzz just across the city in general, and the excitement and lots of referrals that the engagement division has been able to receive because of this. It has led 54 engagement events out in the community since February of 2021. That includes seven mobile block parties since October, with 7 more planned. The rest are relationship building, such as proactive, reactive, Peoria pop-up events in response to department projects or known community issues. All have proven to be very successful with very positive feedback from our residents. The secret to our success, marketing, of course. That being said, our very colorful pop-up van and block party trailer and all their goodies that go along with that continue to be a huge success and high demand. Our brochures connecting neighbors block by block has been very helpful and informative. And of course, the word of mouth, that just the request just keeps rolling in daily to be able to use all these tools that we have in our toolbox, and we continue to grow.
And then you should be very familiar with our extended rent mortgage utility assistance program. It continues to knock it out, where we've been able to help 700 or more households, depending on their need, between rent, mortgage, utility assistance, utilizing our extended $1.5 million of community development block grant COVID federal funding that we received. Homeless has been amongst us for quite a year now, regionally and locally. We want to thank your support. We continue to have coordination meetings, multi-department, police, court, prosecutor's office, parks, library, all get together monthly on how do we best address this. We've had efforts. We put together a HOPE project, or we just did our first one just a couple months ago, and we're scheduling the next one in February, I believe. We just had our point in time count. We're waiting for those data points to come back from MAG, scrubbed, because there's a lot of duplication amongst the cities and within our own count. I'll be talking later tonight about some ARPA funding initiatives, but I just mentioned our CDBG. Had a very good collaboration meeting with the court, prosecutor's office, and PD around MROPE and the diversion opportunities. And we think collectively together, we're able to make a dent on how to better hold accountability and ensuring that people are taking the services that they promise when they have a plea agreement leaving the court. So we really think we're going to have an increased attention in that matter and have better positive results, especially with some of the recent added resources you provided us. Again, been heavy regional presentation with MAG and the county, many of the cities across the valley. We work very closely, continually with our West Valley presidents. They've been great both locally for a West Valley subregion as well as the total region of the metro. These partnerships are very valuable to us as we move forward. We've forged some very good relationships, and I think they're going to further our efforts, and we'll be able to have really good collaborative outcomes as a region. Just as a reminder, we've had helpline out there that's available to people. Anybody observing any homelessness out there, we've done extensive training internally with all of our externally facing departments on how do we handle not just the homeless from a service delivery model and referral, as well as how do we handle the after effects from the encampments. So Phoenix Rescue Mission continues to be our outreach navigator, take them to the needed services. We continue to work with the Central Arizona Shelter Services, CAS, to do our shelter beds. We have up to 7 beds a night by contract. We recently reduced that to 2 down at the Human Service Campus with a reservation of 2 at their upcoming senior shelter they're going to build or acquire through a hotel in Northwest Phoenix. And of course, recently Deep Within and the iHelp model you helped adopt with the ARPA funds. That's going to add another 8 beds with Deep Within and up to 10 to 12 max once the iHelp model is fully developed. Just some quick metrics, and again, just a cautionary, these are since inception, that's 28 months worth of data you see there since October 2019. Phoenix Rescue has been able to engage 677 unique individuals. Now, just a reminder, it's a transient population. They come and go based on season, in and out of homelessness, taking of services. That equates to about 24 engagements a month, and annually on a budget cycle, that's pretty consistent with what we've had historically. When working with PD, we've been able to quantify it's about 250 individuals in a year that we're interacting with throughout the course of a budget cycle. So it's important to marry up that number as opposed to that point-in-time snapshot we tend to see and put a lot of value in. Of those, they've been able to place 99 in shelter, whether it's their own shelter, CAS, or others. 16 additional were placed in a permanent housing. That's the best way to end homelessness, is permanent. And then 30 more were transported to CAS. And of those transported to CAS, 27 accepted their services there, totaling 228 bed nights with an average length of stay there at 21 nights. So what budget consideration we have in that regard? Well, you'll see some continuation of some previous asks, that being the Homeless Navigator through Phoenix Rescue Mission, funding for CAS. I still think they provide families and other things. If you remember, Deep Within is men only, and the iHelp will be men or women. So we need that resource for our families and youth when we come in contact with them. Community Outreach Navigator is going to be an ARPA-funded request that you're going to see. And then around the heels of the June workshop we had around workforce housing discussions and what we might be able to do that as a prevention measure for homelessness, we'd like to submit for an assessment on the workforce housing conditions as well as some policy implications. And then some new initiatives. We love that pop-up vehicle. It's being heavily used and it's high demand, but it was actually an out-of-service vehicle when we got it, and we just put some lipstick on that there pig, and it's doing really well, but the air conditioning doesn't work. It strains and huffs and puffs when we have to tow the trailer, so we really are in need of a new trailer because the demand is out there and the expectation is set. If that thing goes down, we're gonna have some angry residents out there who have a block party plan. So yeah. We have alternatives to work around it for sure, but yeah, having a second one would be very valuable as a backup, or actually use this one as the backup instead, but it's very positive results out in the community. We'd love to have opportunity to continue that and expand it. We also like to seek to add a neighborhood engagement coordinator to keep up with the demands that are set. We're kind of seeing a product of our own success here with the snowballing effect. Everybody sees it, the word of mouth and everything. Next thing you know, everybody wants our resources. So, and plus we lost like a part-time, we had a benefit, fortunate benefit of a part-time coordinator that we recently lost, and would be a great advantage to be able to get a replacement for that. And there's certainly some other funds that we're really learning we need to be able to do proper engagement through brochures, mailings, et cetera. That concludes our presentation. Hopefully we're on the right path. If not, if you have any questions or comments, we'd love to hear them.
Councilmember Hunt?
Wow, you guys have really created a mess of success, haven't you? You've got jobs forever. Just, first of all, Kelly, all the numbers that you shared on youth and family services, especially youth and with the schools and everything, that's just amazing. And one thing stood out to me, and that is to be congratulated on your staff at whatever level they are. They're really flexible and really adaptable. And COVID was a big adaptable situation, but they came through and did not just the best they could, but really over the top phenomenal work. And I know a lot of those people will come back that you lost. Chris, I guess I'm not sure when the Deep Within will be open and available and legal for us to take homeless there. Do you know? I mean,
Yeah.
I thought it was already, so.
Yes, Mayor and Councilmember Hunt, it is. It's been open since December, I want to say. We've had people housed there. I just didn't put it in here, such a small number to begin with. We're really focused on the resources that we've had to date that have provided
Okay,
the success
I
that
guess
we're
I just
outlining.
misunderstood
But
something.
no, we have 8 beds already. We've been utilizing them as needed, and we continue to work with our providers on how to have the most streamlined approach to getting people
Maybe
there.
we can talk about that a little more tomorrow morning.
Absolutely.
Okay. And I'd also like a little more information on the community block parties. It sounds like you're not having enough of those, so I need to add to that. Yeah, just kudos to your whole apartment. You guys are amazing. The energy and the energy that you infuse into the communities, that's what we have to have. People can fix a lot of their own problems if they, A, know how, and B, if they are energized to do it. And sometimes they just need a little help, and it sounds like you guys are really providing that help. So just, and to you, looks like all ladies back there in the back corner, congratulations on all you do to support the area that you are responsible for. It's so important. So anyway, thank you to you, and please express that on to your staff.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. A couple questions. I think the mobile block party trailer is a really cool concept. Is it getting used quite a bit?
Mayor, Councilmember Pretender, yes. It's just fairly recent online. Like I said, we've had 7 uses already. We kind of had a soft launch, but now that it's out, we get calls every week for it. So we've done 7. There are restrictions. It's not just for birthday parties. It's really to build engagement amongst the community. So we want to make sure when it's requested, it's being utilized for that purpose. And we have it planned out for 7 in the future already, and it's almost every weekend.
Great. Second question is, I noticed you placed 16 homeless people into permanent housing, and I'm assuming that they have jobs to be able to pay rent. So my question is, do you have anything to follow up to ensure the success of them maintaining their employment?
Mayor, Councilmember Patena, that's a great question. That's the question of all questions when it comes to permanently ending somebody's homelessness. We work with our providers to give them the best opportunities for success. We have our shelters. We provide case management with them, and if they're able to exit to permanent, it goes to another provider that also provides some of those case management services with the goal to maintain and sustain their livability and shelter. So that's the goal. Regionally, that's all what we're working towards to have, but we don't necessarily have a direct connection to those efforts, if that makes sense.
Well, I would just really like to thank you. The work that you're doing is so meaningful, and it matters so much. I certainly appreciate all of the navigator work and the collaboration that you've done with our MROP program, our misdemeanor repeat offender program. I think those things are so powerful. And Chris, I just have to thank you for how you have been a regional leader. I know getting active in all of the homelessness issues throughout our entire valley has been a big deal for the city of Peoria. We did not have a seat at the table before. Now we have not only a seat at the table, but a seat that people are looking to for solutions, answers, and a way forward. So thank you very, very much for all that you're doing on behalf of not only the city of Peoria, but all of our residents who have homes and the ones who don't. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Tyne?
Great, thank you, Mayor Council, great feedback, I very much appreciate it. Thank you again for all of your help, and of course to the amazing staff. And we next have a presentation from another significant department, Public Works, which oversees so much of our major operations here in the city. And with that, we have Jay Davies, the Director of Public Works, who will discuss the department's progress and future plans. We will have likely a hard stop at 5:50 to ensure time for the regular meeting. So if we don't complete everything tonight, we'll absolutely come back in the next study session with Public Works.
All right, thank you. Did we all hear that deadline? I think he was talking to us.
Actually, nope, take your time. I think it's important that we discuss this, and then we can always come back. Thanks.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My team and I are honored to be in front of you this evening to talk about challenges as well as accomplishments, which frankly, the team behind me, they score the accomplishments and face the challenges. I'm just here to talk about their work. What we're going to talk about briefly is I'm going to provide an overview, which we're doing right now, cover quickly 5 trends that we're experiencing in Public Works here going into the 2023 fiscal year. We'll touch on some key accomplishments across each division. We'll mention the department's goals and how they align with your livability initiatives. And then we'll touch on next steps and where we're going from here. In terms of an overview, Public Works has a mission of preserving and enhancing the City of Peoria's infrastructure and programs for future generations through sustainable practices, superior public service, and efficient operation and maintenance. This is accomplished through, again, this team that you see behind me of amazing professionals. Unfortunately, my Deputy Director, Rhonda Humbles, was unable to be with us this evening. But as I go through each of the functional areas, I'll introduce you to the amazing leaders that lead each of those efforts. Like all other accreditation-eligible departments in the city, Public Works is an accredited agency, and we've been accredited by the American Public Works Association since 2009. As far as each division, we are a vital and often silent partner in delivering service to Peoria residents, and we're comprised of the 5 divisions that you see up there. First is facilities maintenance, led by Kyle Kabashagawa behind me. And what they do is maintain over 90 city-owned facilities with daily responsibilities for over half of those. Next is fleet maintenance, led by John Fruden. They keep all departments operational by acquiring and maintaining around 800 vehicles and pieces of equipment. Next is solid waste, led by Aaron Redd, who provides residential and commercial solid waste and recycling services to over 62,000 customers. And we have street operations, led by Janet Ramsey. They maintain some 1,600 lane miles of roadway, 134 traffic signals, 24,000 signs, and around 17,000 streetlights. Quite an inventory there. Then we have transit, led by Kathy Colbath. They provide mobility to citizens through fixed route, on-demand services, and circulator routes, as well as ADA and dial-a-ride services. And because you can't put her in a box, I've tried, we also have Tricia Bowling, our management analyst, who keeps us all running and is largely responsible for what you'll see tonight. All right, what you see before you is details of our current FY22 operating budget. As you see, about half of that is contractual. 52% of that is contractual, owing to our private sector partnerships on major street projects, as well as other contracts for things such as facility maintenance, some of our transit operations, and more. Our various operations are supported by several types of funds, such as enterprise funds, which cover expenditures using revenues from the operation, kept separate from other city funds. For us, those are the residential, commercial, and stormwater funds. We also use special revenue funds listed there. These are unique funds earmarked for a specific purpose. In our case, that's the Streets Fund and the Transit Fund from the sources listed there. And then lastly, we draw funds from internal service funds. These are obtained through charges for services such as fleet and facilities maintenance that we render to other city departments. I want to talk a little bit about the trends that we're facing going into this fiscal year. You're going to hear these probably from a lot of my peers, and I'm going to try and focus this evening on some of the unique ways that these are impacting public works. Some of those trends include challenges in the labor market, disruptions to the supply chain, and while growth management is always a consideration, we're continually planning for that. We're facing, of course, inflationary pressures, and probably unique to public works, I would guess, is the fluctuation in the commodity markets that we're seeing right now around recycling. So with that, we'll start with streets. Our goal in streets is to maintain our right-of-way infrastructure in the best possible condition in support of your livability goals of superior public service, integrated transportation, and economic prosperity. Some of our successes are on the screen there. These are really a result of the resources and the support that you provided in the form of the fiscal year 22 budget. And because of that, streets employees were able to greatly increase efficiency on street maintenance projects by deploying a Bobcat with special attachments that allows them really to eradicate striping in a much more gentle way than our third-party contractors might do. Crews also added a lead signal specialist, Sean Caniglio. He brought extensive experience, by the way, and he oversees the construction aspect of our signals operation. We took over the process of asphalt restorations for all water services patches. This allows us to do high-quality patches that support our own internal pavement management goals. Management and facilities parking lots, we took over those as well. We want to make sure that there's a seamless experience. Folks who come to our parks are used to amazing park amenities. We want to make sure that the parking lots reflect that quality as well. And we completed 10 parking lot resurfaces this year. And then lastly, we replaced more than 200 aging streetlight poles with new poles, at the same time replacing them with LED bulbs. Slide in front of you now should look familiar. This is our go-to slide where we show you our progress on roadway projects. On the left, you'll see the prior 3 years, and on the right, what we have planned for the next 3 years in terms of pavement maintenance. You'll see they're distributed across the city, and as you know, we use some pretty amazing technology to assess our roads every 3 years and make data-driven decisions on where we deploy those resources. Challenges and opportunities. In streets operations, we're facing a variety of challenges that include expanding programs, coordination, and regulatory compliance. One example you see in the photo there, the traffic safety industry is really stepping up efforts to address the sharp rise in car pedestrian accidents. We're seeing that locally, but we're also seeing that nationally. You'll see that in the news. And this new ladder crosswalk is just one example of those efforts. It's intended to increase awareness of crossing locations with a more dramatic visual, as you might imagine. It's those types of things that will increase pedestrian safety, but they also add to our workload, the time involved, the materials involved. So as those innovations come forward, it places additional stressors on our crews. As mentioned, we accomplish a lot of what we do through contractors who are struggling with obtaining the skilled labor that they need to complete their projects on time. Difficulty obtaining materials is impacting our project schedules. And while we maintain some inventory for emergency replacements, the best example I can give you is we are currently waiting for streetlight poles made of steel that were due last November. Here we are mid-November, or mid-February rather. And while contract management is always critical to our success, these industry challenges are really making matters worse. So to address these challenges, you will see requests when you look at our budget for a street supervisor to provide more efficient span of control to coordinate the growing needs on these projects. You'll see asks for equipment, including an additional dump truck and a trailer, which will allow us to move more material and equipment to job sites to reduce our downtime and to move those projects along more quickly. You'll also see an ask for a project manager who will manage projects at any given time, including software and data management, final pay approvals, extensive collaboration, coordination, and probably most important, communication to our internal and external stakeholders. Any questions on streets before we move to facilities?
Councilmember Dunn?
I just wanted to ask a question. I asked at last council meeting, but I didn't get an answer. I was asking what the warranty is on when we, treat our streets, whether it's, mill and overlay or just, putting the stuff on top. What type of warranty do we have?
Excellent question. So the projects through our contractors come with a 1-year warranty on materials and workmanship. Oftentimes, what we find, though, is beyond that year, we may have to go back and provide additional service to keep things up. But again, within that first year, our contractors provide that warranty.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Go ahead.
Okay. Next up is fleet services. So with fleet, there we are. As a result of the resources and support you provided in the fiscal year 22 budget, fleet employees were able to work with engineering to advance the acquisition of the new fleet services building. After competitive process, we have selected the design build contractor and have moved into project scope and fee negotiations with that team. We have moved forward with the acquisition of our first fully electric vehicle, or battery electric vehicle, if you will. While it's moving slowly through the automotive industry wormhole, Water Services has an electric Ford Transit van on its way. And on the capital side, we're investing in some portable and flexible EV charging infrastructure for our internal use. We're also planning, part of the scope of work for that fleet facility includes some charging infrastructure as well, again for internal use. And then lastly, a great success on the fleet side is John Fruden runs a lean operation. He continues to win awards and get accolades for maintaining our position as an industry leader through software and training on all of this newfangled advanced driver diagnostic system technology and keeping up with all of the new innovations that are out there. All right, the fleet team is facing some daunting challenges. By now, we're all too familiar with the auto industry's woes. The chip shortage has slowed production, and many lots are bare while pent-up demand is creating long waits and higher prices. The microchip shortage is causing lengthy delays in receipt of new vehicles, in some cases extending that by as much as 8 months to a year. This means that the vehicle that is waiting to be replaced is in service much longer than anticipated, resulting in more maintenance and repair costs as well as labor demands on fleet. If you are our fleet manager, John Fruden, none of that is good news. It's not just cars that are garnering higher prices, however. Fuel costs, and I'm sure you're all feeling that at the pump, fuel costs are at record levels. In fact, they're currently almost twice what they were as an average for 2021 for both diesel and unleaded. But at least tire prices are rising as well. The auto industry disruption is having a particular effect on labor in our fleet division. With fewer new cars available, as I mentioned, consumers are also holding on to those and needing repairs on these older vehicles. So dealers and private shops are paying a premium for automotive technicians, which is making recruiting and retaining our own a bit of a challenge. To address all of these challenges, we have a number of requests. I'm sorry, I probably went too far. We are requesting, there they are, fuel supplementals. You'll see those across all departments, but we have to get a budget supplement to purchase the fuel up front. And then you'll see the other departments increasing their asks to pay for it, to buy it from us, and those internal service charges. We are going to ask for a technician, an additional technician, to handle the additional vehicles that we've gotten over the years. About 50 vehicles have been added since the last time we added a technician, so maintaining that service level will require more labor. And then lastly, as I mentioned, the charging and emergency power for electric vehicles, that capital project, you'll see the details on that. Any questions on fleet before we move to solid waste?
Are the manufacturers of electric vehicles helping at all with the charging stations?
Mayor, that's not necessarily the model that we're utilizing. We're not getting direct assistance from any of them. I know some of them have programs out there, but we've actually just looked to obtain a couple of portable units that also function as generators. So they kind of have a dual purpose. We can use them as emergency generators. They're portable so we can move them around to facilities. As I mentioned, we're just now getting our first fully electric vehicle, so we're just entering the fray here. So we want to make sure that we have some infrastructure available so we can expand that fleet, that electric fleet moving forward.
Thank you.
All right, solid waste. Our goal here is to reduce or eliminate the adverse impacts of waste materials on human health and on the environment, and supporting your livability initiatives of superior public service and healthy neighborhoods. As a result of the resources and support you provided for the fiscal year 22 budget, solid waste employees were able to fully deploy our routing software, Routeware, across the entire fleet, and we hope to see that increasing our efficiency as we update routes, manage our container inventory, and coordinate service on a daily basis. We've completed both the Blue Lid and the Green Waste pilots, which I'll speak to in a moment, and we held one Peoria Recycles Day in November, and we'll hold the second coming up here in April in conjunction with Earth Day. As we study longer-term approaches to keep small appliance or e-waste out of the landfill, these Peoria Recycle Days are our near-term approach. In that November event, over 600 vehicles showed up to recycle e-waste and take advantage of on-site shredding services. All right, a quick overview of the Blue Lid pilot, and I will cut right to the chase. It was a success. With the goal of decreasing our recycling contamination rates, we teamed up with the Recycling Partnership, which allowed us to run an education and awareness pilot this past spring. We exchanged lids on April 21st, and Aaron is going to model the Blue Lid. It's a lovely lid. We conducted pre- and post audits to set baseline and measure results accurately. We conducted inspections in certain areas because that was one of the variables. We conducted those over the 8-week pilot. We had two goals in this pilot. One was to evaluate the impact of blue lids in reducing contamination. In other words, a higher level signal to residents that this is where the recycling goes. The second was to evaluate and measure the amount of diversion from the trash entering the waste system. So containers with the blue lid saw over a 9% increased diversion from the trash container to the recycle container. This generated an increase in the recyclables that we collected. We saw a contamination increase in the areas with no blue lid. So those who weren't benefiting from the blue lid continued to see deteriorating recycle rates. We know that recovery of recyclables from the waste stream increases diversion. We know that it generates additional revenue for us, particularly nowadays. It reduces landfill costs and it saves landfill space. While this pilot was a success, we're not seeking additional funding at this time. Instead, the Recycling Partnership has expressed interest in funding additional blue lid studies, which will result in additional blue lids getting out there on their dime as we study this further and really try to hone in what makes the greatest impact with residents in getting that diversion rate where we need it to be.
So the more studies we do, the more blue lids we get, and we keep them, right?
That's how it works, correct, Mayor?
So smart. I'm
Yes.
loving the blue lid
Yeah.
thing.
At some point, the studies will end and we'll come to you to ask for funding to make up the difference, but as long as these studies are adding lids, we're going to keep going. The second pilot that we ran, just wrapped up here at the end of the calendar year, was the Green Waste Project. The team ran this pilot to explore ways to reduce our landfill footprint, this time to divert green waste, or as you can see there, tree limbs, leaves, cuttings, things like that. 9 different areas were selected across the city for the pilot program. Different educational strategies were applied. Green waste was separated from normal bulk pickup and collected curbside. We selected areas across the city that we know to have mature vegetation, average single-family homes, and everything in between to get a good mix of sampling. Our education strategies include tags, social media, emails, and personal contact. Green waste, when collected, was delivered to a composting facility. That was the ultimate product, was compost. Over 5,000 homes participated. We only had about 10% of the participating homes set out green waste. That compares to 10 to 30% who typically participate in bulk pickup. So a little bit of a lower participation rate. Areas participating in the pilot program received 2 green waste collections over the course of the pilot. We did succeed in collecting 250 tons of green material. So the end result there is we did divert 250 tons despite the lower rate. Still a pilot. We would expect to have more promotion if we were to carry this on. At this time, however, despite being able to divert 250 tons, this is very labor intensive and resource intensive. For us to continue this moving forward, and this is not the ask in front of you now, we would have to add an entire crew, basically the equivalent of a bulk trash crew. And we're not ready to ask you to commit to that at this time. We'll continue to look at other opportunities, other service models, and potentially partnerships before we look to commit to anything further on that. In terms of challenges and opportunities, solid waste has them. As the recycling industry continues to find ways to adapt and overcome following the devastating reversal in the commodities market, progress is being made, but there's still a long way to go. We did finally move into the black in terms of our recycling processing. We're receiving revenue now rather than paying for the processing, but we're taking a wait-and-see approach as we continue to explore revenue opportunities in the commodity market. Our solid waste drivers hold commercial driver's licenses just like those in the trucking industry, and you're all hearing about the challenges in the trucking industry these days. This is another area where labor conditions have been in flux. As a result, we've experienced recruitment and retention challenges in that area as well. Next challenge is windshield time. That's what we call it when drivers are not collecting waste, but they're driving to collect waste. As we develop more and more to the north, that creates more distance between the cans we're servicing and the facilities where we're dropping off or processing the waste. To address these challenges, some things that we're asking for are 2 equipment operators that will actually service our bulk service that will allow us to stop borrowing from residential and commercial. We're looking for a tractor and trailer also for the bulk operation. Our existing equipment is aging out, and it's driving our fleet manager crazy keeping it together. And then lastly, this isn't an ask, it's a give. Because of the current turnaround in recycling commodities, we're turning back in $500,000 in budgeted funds as we see how things play out in the recycling market. Any questions about solid waste before we move on to transit?
Councilmember Dunn?
Waste, you said that we're selling it for compost,
Yes,
correct?
correct.
What's the difference between what we get for the compost and what we pay to have that?
Councilmember Dunn, it's an excellent question. What I have is a full summary of the entire pilot that I'd be happy to share with your office that will go into all of those details. I don't actually have that figure in
Are
front
we
of me.
breaking even?
Aaron, what would you say? Are we breaking even with that operation?
So we don't actually buy the compost as a solid waste division. We have a partnership where we're delivering to the compost facility.
So what we receive in payment though versus what we pay to collect it and get to them, are we breaking even?
I'm not sure of that right now.
It's a great question. We'll dig into that. Understand that the purpose of the pilot was not necessarily to make money on that. It was more to measure resident interest in participating in it. As we move forward, if it seems viable and we can find a service model that works, we'll look for partners where there's a revenue stream for sure.
Yeah, my biggest concern is not, that we're necessarily making money. I mean, that would be nice. But if we're not breaking even, because it does, when you put it into landfill, because we are so arid here, it does have moisture in it and it helps break down trash. I mean, that's what helps the landfills. So anyways, so that was one of the questions. And then on the one last thing on the blue lids, I just wanted to say at first I wasn't a big fan of it, but I think it has been a good program. So I just wanted to say congratulations on that.
Thank you. We'll also have the full details of that pilot as well that we'll share with you. Okay, moving on to transit operations. In transit, our goal is to provide mobility that is safe, affordable, comfortable, and efficient to ensure connectivity throughout and beyond Peoria, supporting your livability initiatives of superior public service, integrated transportation, and economic prosperity. As a result of the resources and support you provided in the fiscal year 22 budget, transit employees were able to run a couple of pilots, which are still underway. As you know, we're currently running those pilots, the main goal of which is to engage the public as we explore interest in different transit models. Data collection is the primary goal, and as these pilots wrap up, we can review and consider the results for future transit decision-making. POGO destination service was implemented in October of 2021 to connect residents with Peoria points of pride. We've made a year-long commitment to this pilot and to evaluate this model. While it typically takes about 3 years to fully establish ridership on a new route, we're encouraged after a few months with ridership growing to a few hundred each month, fairly evenly distributed across each of the routes, the red, green, and the blue. On the other hand, the RoboRide Medical Project launched more recently in the Plaza del Rio area. This unique program provides trips on an autonomous vehicle in an area with senior living facilities, single and multifamily residences, and major medical facilities. We're partnering with MAG on this innovative pilot to measure interest and in the use of autonomous vehicles, and are happy to announce that RoboMedical is up for a Valley Forward Award coming up soon. And then the Transit Education Program started with classes and outreach to provide information to residents and the community on how to ride transit services, and continues to increase rider confidence in navigating the system. Now to the Transit Master Plan. That has been completed, something you funded previously, and it identifies transit options for consideration in support of future city growth. We will be sharing the details with you in coming weeks. These challenges have resulted in us developing some asks to address them. Getting ahead of myself. These are our challenges. Reliable service delivery. This depends on the availability of qualified drivers. While our transit operators are not required to have CDLs or commercial driver's licenses, they do need a passenger endorsement and other certifications to work with the populations they serve. This leads to labor hurdles not unlike what you're seeing in the school bus environment. The purpose of our education and outreach program is to reach current riders, future riders, and even those who may never use transit, but we might need their support to continue to offer meaningful transit solutions. So we must build confidence, gain acceptance, and deliver transit services that positively impact our community and local economy. As you know, we're part of a larger regional system and must keep the interest of Peoria residents at the forefront at regional planning efforts. So, our pending FY23 requests that address those challenges. I must interrupt myself because I have more great news. This seems like a great time to point out that moving into fiscal year 23, $1.6 million that we've been spending on the 83rd Avenue route is no longer our responsibility. That'll be absorbed by the regional funding, so that is off our plate. Having discussed that, let me talk what we are asking for. We're looking to address our current challenges by seeking additional hours for existing part-time drivers, as well as contract funds for drivers and dispatchers to deliver uninterrupted service. We're seeking additional funding for our transit education program, started with classes and outreach to provide information to the community on how to ride transit, and now we're taking that so much further. We're educating folks on where to access the bus, how to access the bus, how to pay the fare, where it goes, how to use the schedule, just kind of bus 101. We're also seeking funding to add Sunday service to the Peoria route, Route 106, to better serve Peoria residents, as well as increase consistency in the region. This will also increase our requirement to provide complimentary ADA service, furthering the need for additional driver resources. Any questions about transit before we move on to facilities?
Councilmember Binsbacher?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to make sure I understand. We have, with POGO, you had said that this was a pilot. It takes 3 years to really measure, you know, I guess, grow into the ridership. So after, but did you say it was a 1-year pilot?
That's correct.
Okay, so then after 1 year, we analyze how it's doing and where it's being used. So right now, we're up to 300 per month, which is a good number, but we're also able to break it down to where they're using it and where they're not using it. And all of that we'll assess after the 1 year.
That's correct, Councilmember Binsbacher. We'll do an assessment on the ridership, pour over the data, rider surveys, get all of that information, community feedback, and then we'll come back to you with what that looks like and look for your guidance on what you'd like to see next in our circulator routes.
Great, okay. And then also the classes that are going to be happening, we'll get feedback on that as well. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, actually, our transit manager Kathy Colbath has rolled out a very robust education program, and we've got a lot of people excited about it.
All right, thank you.
So all we need is spring training for POGO destinations to hit.
Correct.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. Quick question, Jay, on the autonomous vehicle. It's operating in an area that's predominantly elderly people. Are they embracing that? Are they using it? Are they going to their doctor's appointments? Is it successful?
Vice Mayor Patena, it's an excellent question. Quite frankly, our RoboRide rollout coincided perfectly with the Omicron variant, which we're finding is impacting ridership. Our ridership numbers are fairly low. Again, we're not necessarily looking for numbers as much as the feedback and the data, but yeah, if you're looking purely at ridership, that population being particularly vulnerable to the pandemic, the Omicron certainly is having its stamp on that for sure.
But the day that we had the groundbreaking and the opening for that service, people were very excited about it. There was a lot of people who showed up, a lot of people who rode, and a lot of people who were excited to be able to go to their appointments in that one condensed area. That's
Correct.
good.
Yes.
Councilmember Dunn?
Just a real quick question on the autonomous vehicle. Is it, because when I had first ridden it, there was an attendant there, and one of the comments was that it'll never be fully autonomous. Is that true, or has it gone to that now? Because it's been about a year since I rode it.
Right, Councilmember Dunn, under the current pilot, there will always be an attendant. Again, part of what we're trying to do is gauge the public's comfort with riding in an autonomous vehicle. So the attendant stays back, isn't really operating it, but is there in case of an emergency.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, with that, we're going to end for time, and we'll take it from there.
Perfect timing.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. We will come back with Mr. Kobashigawa's facilities maintenance section at our next study session, but really appreciate the feedback and time. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we are adjourned until our 6 p.m. meeting.
The Mayor and City Council welcome you to the Peoria City Council meeting. As a courtesy to others, please silence all phones. If you would like to address an issue that is on the agenda, or if you would like to speak to the council regarding a non-agenda item, please complete a speaker request form, which can be found in the front lobby of the Peoria City Council chambers or in the tray to the left of the speaker's podium. Please place the completed speaker request form in the second tray to the left of the speaker's podium labeled Request to Speak. All speakers will have 3 minutes to complete their comments. A countdown clock is easily visible on the left side of the wall behind the City Council dais. Only items listed on the agenda may be addressed by the council. Since items presented as part of a speaker's request have not been listed on the agenda, and due to the requirements of open meeting laws, the council will be unable to respond to items presented as part of the speaker's request. However, please be aware that your comments will be noted. The speaker's name will be called to speak at the appropriate time, in the order that the forms were received. Thank you for your interest and participation in the Peoria City Council meeting.
Come to order. Please rise for a moment of quiet reflection and the Pledge of Allegiance led by Mayor Pro Tem Hunt. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The clerk will please call the roll.
Mayor Carlett,
Here.
Vice Mayor Patena. Here. Councilmember Hunt,
Here.
Councilmember Finn,
Here.
Councilmember Dunn,
Here.
Councilmember Binsbacher,
Here.
Councilmember Edwards,
Here.
Youth Liaison Fierro,
Here.
and Youth Liaison Rodriguez.
Here.
Good evening and welcome to the Peoria City Council meeting of February 15th, 2022. If anyone would like to address an issue that's on the agenda, or if you would like to speak regarding a non-agenda item, we have speaker request forms available in the lobby next to the speaker's podium or from the clerk. Please complete the form and return it to the clerk. Before we begin our presentation this evening, I would just like to take a moment and acknowledge that February is Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. And as you can see, many of us are wearing orange tonight. Looking very spry in our orange. We're doing this to bring awareness to this important cause, and we are also lighting City Hall for the entire week. It will be lit orange, so when you leave here tonight, I think it will be dark enough for you to see us all lit up like a pumpkin. Many organizations are fighting to end teen dating violence, and I would like to acknowledge Bloom 365, a Peoria nonprofit that has a space in our resource center. So if you or someone you know is experiencing teen dating violence, please visit www.bloom365.org or contact 888-606-4673 for help. The next item on our agenda is about history making. The Liberty High School girls golf team won its first state championship in school history, and head coach Kyle Pooler was named the 2021 Arizona Girls Golf Coach of the Year. Let's give him a hand. I would like to invite the Liberty Girls Golf Team and Coach Pooler to the chamber floor where we will meet you and read a proclamation in your honor. A way for him to come to our council meetings. Red here, okay. Cool shirts. All right. So, first of all, congratulations. Entire city of Peoria. You guys are amazing. First time in history. So I'm going to read this proclamation for you. Whereas the mayor and council of the city of Peoria recognize the 2021 Liberty High School girls golf team for their outstanding focus and dedication to capture the Division I Arizona Interscholastic State Golf Championship. And whereas Maddie Frick, Brooke McGlasson, Annika Seda, Tayan Sweet, and Caitlin Anderson led the Liberty High School girls golf team to its first state championship in school history. And whereas Maddie Frick and Brooke McGlasson finished as top 10 medalists in the championship field of 82 golfers, each later being named to the All-American, All-Arizona team. Excuse me, getting ahead of myself there, aren't I? Whereas head coach Kyle Puller was named the 2021 Arizona Girls Golf Coach of the Year. And whereas the Liberty High School girls golf team competed with great character, intensity, and pride throughout the season and state tournament, and whereas high school sports develops confidence, leadership, and respect in athletes, character traits that translate beyond high school. And whereas the city of Peoria and the entire community are proud of the Liberty High School girls golf team for their achievements on the course and in the community. Now, therefore, I, Kathy Carlett, Mayor of the City of Peoria, in the state of Arizona, do hereby proclaim February 15th, 2022 as Liberty High School Girls State Golf Championship Day. Congratulations. You have a day. This is your day. Coach, would you like to say a few words?
Not really, but I will. I can tell you, I don't know that I need a mic. It's been an unbelievable accomplishment. We set out last year, and at the end of the year, you know, we finished 5th, and a lot of the talk was, hey, we need to be in the top 3, and I really pushed on the girls to say, hey, if we're going to do this, we need to do it right, and we're going to win the state championship, and that's our focus, and that's where we need to be. And I think all year long, they strive to do that from top to bottom. You know, as a coach, I had to pick 5 to go down there, but all 8 were involved in us getting to where we ended up. They pushed each other, they helped each other, they worked hard all year long, and then obviously to beat Xavier, a team that has won 34 state championships, was pretty awesome.
So I've got a little bit of excitement about me when I get a microphone, so hold on to your seats there. I want to talk about how awesome these girls are. I am Aaron Kogener. I'm the athletic director. I've been there at Liberty High School since the school opened in 2006. Not only is this the program's first state title, it is our school's first state title for lady athletics. They broke the glass ceiling, and we're going to be back. Now, you talk about Xavier. I actually looked it up. It was 37 titles over the last 5 decades. That is the Goliath, but we were no David. We are very talented, we are very deep, and we had a coach that brought the girls together and put them through a lot of tough competition this year to prepare them mentally, because we had the talent. We needed that mental game. And to take them on over 2 days down in Tucson was extraordinary. Now, I'm going to go back to last time we were here in September. I believe it was September we were here. And we honored our baseball team that won the state title. And we honored Maddie here because she was a state champion. I want you to know outside those doors, as I was talking with Maddie's family, I said, I want you to tell you something. You're winning state this year. She's like, really? I go, nope, you are. And then right before the state tournament, I was talking with Coach Puller, and we had a little bit of a snafu with the hotel rooms. So we worked through that, and I said, Coach, this is good news. And he's like, what are you talking about? We have no hotel rooms. I go, Coach, whenever something like this happens, it means you're going to win state. And he was like, all right. And sure enough, we won state. So I want you to know that these ladies, even though they are champions, and they did so well this year, I am so much more proud of them because of the human beings that they are. I want you to know we have just the utmost respect with their grades and their character and the human beings that they are. They are the perfect student athletes. So they deserve so much applause for that, whether they win or lose, even though we won, they win it for that. So thank you very much for having us.
So, ladies, I have to. Hello? There we go. Ladies, from the first female mayor in the city of Peoria, I have to thank you for breaking another glass ceiling.
Thank you so much.
Can I see your ring?
I got one more coming.
Oh, I hope it doesn't fit you.
Mike wanted me to tell you, don't forget number 5.
Oh. Okay, number 5. Wow, I don't have it. Okay, the next item on our agenda is certificates of newly appointed boards and commission members. Please take a look at the screen above my head. Ranging from arts and culture to economic development to planning and zoning. They're made up of residents and business leaders who bring a wealth of personal and professional experience and who generously volunteer their time, energy, and wisdom to our community. Members meet on a regular basis, deliberating and collaborating on various projects and issues of importance for the benefit of all Peoria residents. In the past few years, they have had a direct role in influencing meaningful projects like the Veterans Memorial expansion, multiple public art installations, accessible park amenities, and our Youth Advisory Board even collaborated with the State Attorney General's office to team up in the fight against tobacco sales to minors. As we welcome new volunteers into this exceptional group of people, I want you to know how much we appreciate your willingness to share your time and expertise with our city. On behalf of the City of Peoria and the Peoria City Council, I want to express our gratitude and appreciation. Your service makes a difference. It's an honor to have you working alongside us as we shape our finest future. I would like to introduce Councilmember Mike Finn, who is the chair of the Council Subcommittee for Boards and Commissions.
Thank you, Mayor. I have 4 certificates that I'm going to hand out today. The first is Ginger Santabaria, Citizens Commission on Salaries for Elected Officials. There you go. Round of applause. Get your collector's item photo. Never sure what to do with this microphone in between these. Next is Philip Jaggi, Construction Board of Appeals. Congratulations, sir. Thank you, sir. Smile, good to hear. Thank you. Next, we have John Eliason, Judicial and Public Defender Advisory Board. And last but certainly not least, Ms. Joan Evans, Citizens Commission on Salaries for Elected City Officials.
She's walked those steps a few times, you know. I said you've walked those steps a few times.
I'll help get this back up.
All right, thank you all for your contributions. We could not do it without you. All right. This is the final call to submit speaker request forms. If anyone would like to address an issue that is on the agenda, or if you would like to speak regarding a non-agenda item, return the form to the clerk and you will be recognized at the appropriate time. We'll now move on to the regular agenda, and excuse me, we will not. We will be moving on to the consent agenda. All items listed on the consent agenda are considered to be routine or have been previously reviewed and/or discussed by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. If the presiding officer receives a timely notice of a request for removal, an item may be removed from the consent agenda for consideration on the regular agenda. Council, I have received no request for removal. Is there a motion on the consent agenda? A motion and a second. Council, please vote. And it passes unanimously. Now we will move on to the regular agenda and new business. Item 11R is sale of city property, vicinity of 83rd Avenue and Greenway Road. Mr. Tyne?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We are excited to discuss an opportunity to bring a high-profile healthcare presence here to the city of Peoria. The strategic sale of city land and the subsequent development would address a number of your economic development objectives. And to go and elaborate more into this, we have Katie Gregory, our Deputy City Manager, will begin on the details of a purchase agreement and subsequent development of the site. Ms. Gregory?
Thank you, Jeff. Mayor, City Council, I'm excited to be the first agenda item on the regular agenda this evening with a very exciting project that I'd like to talk to you a little bit about. It's in our P83 district, and it's one that's going to bring Peoria, one of our very strategic parcels in Peoria, to life with a great partner and in Honor Health, and bring premier health care to the area. So I'm very excited about this. Talk a little bit about the agreement in the area. The site that I'm talking about has been referred to lovingly by all of us Peorians as the Skunk Creek parcels. I will say that perhaps that name may change for Honor Health. I don't think they want to call it the Skunk Creek parcel, but in any event, this is the site that is located south of the Skunk Creek between 83rd Avenue and the Loop 101, just north of, kind of at the Banff and north of the Acoma alignment. This site has been a city-owned property since 2018. If you recall, at that time, the city had it was originally a 14-acre site that was PAD zoned, so it had a PAD on it, and a portion of it got developed as a self-storage facility. Part of the reason the city entertained the idea of purchasing this site was, quite honestly, as a blocking strategy, as part of our economic development strategies, to ensure that maybe more of the same wasn't going to occur on that site as an allowable use. So we had identified it as a very strategic site for the city, one with great freeway presence, one that could really be kind of our entry feature into our new P83 district, and we saw that as a real opportunity. So when we purchased it, the intent there was that we would use that, we would go after high-wage jobs in the form of either healthcare, possibly university, or a major corporate headquarter of some sort. But we always anticipated an office presence in that location. You can see here that the site is actually made up of two different pieces, a 4.85 acre parcel and a 2.66 acre parcel. It is being sold as one altogether. The parcel or the project that we're proposing on the site and that we have been working with our partners in Honor Health has been for a 75,000 square foot Honor Health medical campus. This would include the various medical disciplines that you see here, including this as part of their cancer care network. Includes the primary and other specialty cares that might be needed in the area. It would include an ambulatory surgery center, as well as outpatient imaging, such as x-rays, CTs, MRIs, those types of things. So those are just sort of what we know today, and I'm sure that Honor Health at some time will share with us some of the other potential things that may be going in that location as they get closer to that point. There is some opportunity for future expansion if they so choose. There was some area on the site that could be developed. It might require a little more parking thought, but that is still an opportunity for the site in the future. I want to talk a little bit about the purchase agreement or the sales agreement. One of the big things that the city had a real interest in was to work with a partner who would understand how important it is for the city to see a project actually come to fruition at any one of our sites. That's always a very key element. It's when you're selling property, remember you're selling it and you're hoping that whoever's purchasing it is going to do what you would hope they would do with the property. In this case, we built in some securities into the purchase agreement so that we have the ability to ensure that we get as close as we possibly can before we close escrow to ensure that that site will be developed as a medical center. And they have all full intentions to do so. I just, you know, as when you're negotiating agreements, you're always trying to, sometimes you have to look at the worst case scenario, but in this case, I think we've got the best case scenario we could have asked for. So some of the terms of the sale are that they will purchase the parcel at our appraised value. We did an appraisal in July of last year. They'll have up to 12 months to get their site plan and vertical permits approved through the city. So that's a process they'll need to go through. We will close escrow once they have got those approved site plans and permits, and once they have a construction contract, can show proof of a construction contract and have all their financing in place. That gets us as close as you possibly get to ensuring that that project is going to move. So, and then beyond that, they'll make sure that they begin construction within 60 days, and we'll have 36 months with the opportunity for another 6-month extension if needed to get to full tenant improvements for 50,000 square feet. That was an important element as well. It's one thing to build a building and get it to a shell condition, but it's another thing to actually put the tenants in there and get them up and running, and that's really important to the city. They also have agreed to grant an easement and provide pedestrian access to the Skunk Creek Trail. As we know, that's an important amenity for our citizens and for employees who may be in that area and want to take a quick walk over to the park and enjoy their lunch. We'd love to see that. And they've also agreed to screen some of the back house functions from off-site view so that the trail, people using the trail and the folks on the freeway aren't seeing kind of that back of house of the site. So we're very excited. There's other terms in there, but these were some of the highlights of what we included in the real estate agreement. Now, before I get to the recommendation, I did want to say that we have some guests in the audience. And I would actually, Wendy Riddell from Barry Riddell, who's here representing Honor Health, would like to take a minute to just provide a few words to us, if that's okay. She promised she'd be a little short, but we'll see.
Mayor, Council, Wendy Riddell with the law from Barry Riddell. I just want to express on behalf of Honor Health how excited we are to be a part of your community, to be helping the residents here in Peoria. Your staff has been great. We think this is an incredible opportunity that we're going to be a real asset. So that's all we wanted to share.
Well, that was certainly short and sweet, and very sweet. I'm sorry I didn't recognize you there earlier. It's very nice to have you back.
Yeah, of course.
And I also would like to just make you aware that the Honor Health CEO, Todd Laporte, and the Senior Vice President for Ambulatory Services is here, David Price. There in the
Waving from the audience.
Yeah. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say thank you to Mr. David Demore, who was the gentleman that has been representing Honor Health in all of our negotiations and has been just an absolute pleasure to work with. And I certainly hope, David, we have an opportunity to work some more in the future. So. With that, I would say staff would like to recommend that council approve item 11R to authorize the sale of the Skunk Creek property, as we call it, as described in the real estate agreement, and authorize the city manager to negotiate further terms and sign documents as necessary to complete the sale.
Thank you. Councilmember Finn.
Thank you, Mayor. One comment and one question. So comment is we're very excited to have this come into the air. I think it's going to be a great project. So I think it's going to be perfect right there. My question for staff is, I think it's fantastic. We purchased it for 2.7. We're selling it for 3.4. We got a $699,000 delta on that. How do we, I assume the money that we use to purchase it goes back to the fund that we bought.
Absolutely.
Okay, and then I don't want to use the word profit, but I guess I can't really call it anything else. How is that money treated and where does that go?
So the original sale was made out of the city's half-cent sales tax fund as part of our policy for half-cent sales tax to use it for economic development purposes as well as other items. So when we have any profits that come from any sales, we would put that back to the city's half-cent sales tax fund.
Okay, great, thank you.
Councilmember Dunn?
So I too am excited about this coming in. I did have a question because back in February 2020, it might have been a month or two after, I was speaking to our then Economic Development Director, Rick Buss, and he had been talking about maybe a 40 to 60 bed like micro hospital. Are we not doing that anymore? And if so, was it because of zoning? Is there any way that that could be implemented at a later date?
Thank you for that question, Councilmember Dunn. I would say that in discussions with Honor Health, when I started working with Mr. Damore, the Honor Health model changed a bit from what maybe some of those earlier discussions were. Also, it would require a zoning adjustment, and again, we have some adjacency to some neighborhoods, and there was some concern that maybe that wouldn't be as easy of a option for them, and it certainly wasn't within their model of what they were looking to do as they were building their next versions of their facilities. So they, of course, came back and indicated what they were looking to do, and it fit very well within what the city was looking for at that location.
Well, again, I think it's a great project, so thank you.
You know, what Honor Health is bringing to our community is tremendous. We do not have cancer research and treatment in the city of Peoria at this point, and I am just thrilled to welcome you, to welcome Honor Health, and I'm looking forward to what you can do for our residents. And I'm sure that this is, you know, really a marriage made in heaven, so we thank you so much. And with that, I would take a motion to approve the staff recommendation.
Move to approve.
I have a motion and a second. Council, please vote. And it passes unanimously. Thank you so much and welcome. All right, we will now move on to item number 12, which is budget amendment and contract extension, economic development consulting services. Mr. Tyne.
Great, thank you, Mayor. This is a request to continue a successful arrangement on an as-needed basis with the Pasley Management Group, who has been an instrumental part of several high-level economic development projects. And again, I'll pass it to Ms. Gregory to present on the contract extension.
Yes, thank you. Again, happy to be here to talk about an economic development consulting contract that staff is requesting that council allow us to extend. If you recall, when we started down the path of working with some very large development projects in the city, we identified the need to have some additional support for providing some pre-development and some other type of skill sets that would help us get some of these investments off the ground. And so in doing so, we kind of were looking around for who really understands how cities work, what the legal and financial frameworks are around how cities get involved in deals. And we happened upon Pasley's Management Group. More specifically, we happened upon Mr. Paul Blue, who, for your knowledge, is a an employee was an employee for the city of Phoenix for 30 years and worked very closely on a number of very high-profile projects, including Cityscape and the Mayo Clinic and the TGen and some of the downtown ASU projects that were down there, and was the lead negotiator for those projects. And so as part of that, we thought we could really use some additional help when we were entering into our Stadium Point project to have some additional support that really understood how to structure deals in the current environment as a kind of understanding of, from a city's perspective, what would be needed. So we entered into a contract at that time. That contract has expired, and I am looking to extend that contract to April 30th of 2020. As part of this, we did this as a single source contract. And anytime we would use a single source contract, if any amount that's over $100,000 would require council approval. That's my request this evening, is to come back to council to ask them to approve a budget amendment for $150,000 and to approve the extension of the contract for for Pasley Management Group, more specifically for the expertise that Mr. Paul Blue brings to the table. And again, as Jeff mentioned, he would only be providing services on an as-needed basis. However, I will say, as part of our economic development strategies that we're undergoing currently, we have a number of projects that are going to require a lot of really smart minds to kind of help work through. May all come very quickly, and it always is nice to have a deep bench to be able to go to if needed when these things come through and work in the best interest of the city. So that is my request this evening, is to extend this contract and approve a budget amendment in the amount of $150,000. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Councilmember Dunn?
Source, it's not going out to bid at all?
No, this would not be that. When we have the opportunity to do a single source contract, when we believe that when the advantages of and overriding conditions are more advantageous to the city, meaning we have a person who has very direct and clear experience working specifically on negotiations, deal development, deal structures, financial, legal, framework and aspects that might be in areas of things that this city, as a younger city, has not experienced in the past and may not have all the expertise available or the capacity available to do that when we have a number of competing projects coming in. Also can provide a lot of comparative analysis and some market analysis and intelligence that as a public, we don't typically have access to some of those things. So we're very excited to be able to continue the contract. And again, as I said, there's really, this is going to be on an as-needed basis. As the projects come in and we find that we need a little bit of extra support, we'd be using it. And then that would be the purpose for it.
So I guess I don't have any other question. I will say, though, that I won't be voting on this tonight because the amount of money, $150,000, could fund things that other things that we need. The other thing is, I am aware that there are connections to some staff members, so I won't be voting on this tonight. Thanks.
Mr. Tyne?
Thank you. Well, I'll address any questions that the council has on that. I should just mention, going through this arrangement has been a pleasure to work with this consultant. Obviously, this consultant working for a city government for 30 years has great connections with a number of us, and we really appreciate that. It gives us the sense of credibility that we need when we're making important decisions. And one other, I think, important thing to bring is the expertise that this gentleman brings reduces the amount of work hours, which is an incredible cost, as well as saves us an incredible amount as we go through the negotiation process, we think pays dividends. So thank you.
Thank you. And Katie, would you please repeat for me some of the experiences that are coming to the Peoria table because of this contract? You said Mayo Clinic?
Yeah, I mean, Mr. Blue has led and evaluated and negotiated development and redevelopment agreements for City of Phoenix for a number of years. Some of those projects included the Mayo Clinic Hospital when it relocated into City of Phoenix, the ASU downtown when they created the downtown campus, Cityscape, and TGen are just to name a few, as well as I'm sure. I mean, I don't have his whole list, but I'm sure that there were many other projects City of Phoenix has been involved in, and he's been at the
Yeah.
forefront as both Economic Development Director and as the Deputy City Manager over Economic Development.
I think that's plenty, actually. Thank you for that. I mean, I have had the pleasure of working a little bit with Mr. Blue, and I would say that he is a tremendous asset. And the amount of money that we are paying for what we're about to do put him, where he's going to have to really work hard in the next year or so in the city of Peoria. And we are very, very fortunate to have his expertise.
And I would like to say to that point, he was instrumental on working in the Stadium Point. And if you recall with the Stadium Point, that was an agreement that came through with very little city funds going towards that agreement. I think that we got a very solid agreement out of that in terms of what the city has to put into that. So, and that was a lot of his creativity when it comes to deal structuring and understanding the environment of which we have to work in.
Yes, understanding the environment in which we have to work, and that's a really big thing because cities are not run like individual businesses. They are run like municipalities that have to have a lot of public input and work in a whole different way when you're talking about taxpayer dollars. So with that, I will entertain a motion for item 12R. Yes. Yes, please.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I think this is a very productive and meaningful relationship. I think it's a critical part of and contribution to our overall effort from an economic development standpoint moving forward. So I am in support of this budget amendment, and with that, I would like to make a motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second. Council, please vote. And it passes with 6-1. We will now move on to item 13R. Contract amendments approval, MGC Contractors, Inc., Beardsley Water Reclamation Facility expansion. Mr. Tyne?
Great, thank you, Mayor and Council. And Kate Powers, our Water Services Director, will discuss the next phase in the Beardsley Water Reclamation Facility expansion approved by Council in the current 10-year capital improvement program, and I'll pass it to Mr. Powers.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Tyne. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Item 13R concerns contract amendments for MGC contractors who are currently working on the Beardsley Water Reclamation Facility. The intent of the project is to increase the treatment capacity of the plant from 4 million gallons a day to 6 million gallons a day. This is due largely to growth that we're seeing in what we call the Beardsley Service Zone. This is the area shown on the map that drains down to the Beardsley Water Reclamation Facility. The capacity is used up to the point in that plant where expansion is now required by Maricopa County Environmental Services Department. So we've been proceeding with this for a couple years now. We selected MGC contractors along with Carollo Engineers as a design-build team in 2020. So if this seems a little like deja vu, like you've done this before, it's because you have been here thinking about this project twice before. First time was for design services, or what we call Phase 1A, back in 2020. We also had an award for final engineering and early procurement back in 2021 in March. And then we are here today for Phase 2A, contract amendments for long lead equipment, procurement and construction services, as well as engineering services during design. This project obviously has multiple phases to it and multiple awards. The final award we're expecting, significant award we're expecting, will happen this June in 2022, hopefully right before your summer break. So what are these long lead and equipment procurement and construction services? So $9.5 million roughly of the award is for things, I mean, these are process equipment. So it's vertical turbine pumps, it's electrical equipment, standby generators, general conditions, things like that. There's also engineering services attached to this as well. This is to pay the engineer to review submittals, complete design, any design changes as necessary, process requests for information, things like that during the construction process. The total for Phase 2A is $9.982 million as shown on the screen. We've actually made fairly good progress in this project. The engineering design is what I'll call 95% complete or something like that. It has been turned in for review by Maricopa County and applied for a permit. We also have it into our own development and engineering group for a permit there as well. And when you approved early last year, the early procurement and early construction, you allowed us to get a jump start in some work that's already taken place. So you can see the picture on the upper right that looks like a lot of dirt. It's because it's a lot of dirt, because that's what it looks like when you start doing excavation for projects. We also removed some old equipment that was outdated there as well. If you look at the picture on the lower right, that is a filter bed that is being rehabilitated and reconfigured to take new cloth media filters that are a lot more efficient than the filters we were using prior to that. We're expecting this project to be complete by the end of 2023. So a little bit of history here. Phase 1A award was around $1 million. You can see Phase 1B was about $7.7 million, and tonight the proposal is for $9.982 million. We have a budget remaining of about $10 million. The point there is that the award that we're asking for tonight is within the current approved budget that you've approved in previous capital improvement budgets. Something I do want you to be very aware of, though, is that this project is currently being subject to considerable cost escalation. I think this past January 18th, Ed Striffler gave a detailed presentation on factors impacting the cost of construction in the Phoenix metropolitan area. And I don't want to just repeat what he said, but to remind you perhaps of that conversation. And this project is certainly being impacted by inflation, supply chain disruptions, labor costs, material shortages, and certainly energy or fuel, gas, oil impacts everything that goes into these projects. And a little taste of how that's working is these long lead procurement and construction services costs of $9.82 million. If you just back up and take a look at the package of things that we're currently purchasing with that money, we would expect those costs to be 17 to 20% lower than the cost that you're seeing on the screen right now in order to proceed with the work. We continue to work this project, and I'll give you a list here in a couple of slides of what we're doing, things we're doing to try to address this and manage this to the best of our ability. We're seeing this in projects across the board, essentially. We still have the remaining components of the project left are undergoing bidding, and there's estimating going on, but we expect the total project cost impacts will be significant. I don't have an exact number for you now, or I'd put it on the screen for you, but you'll see those and review those as part of the fiscal year 23 capital improvement budget. We have a number of things we're doing to try and mitigate these impacts. Number one, we have the general contractor bidding out to subs virtually all of the significant project components. In other words, even though you have a general contractor on board, they're not going out and self-performing all the work. So if it's excavation, we're making them go out and get bids for all the excavation work, and we compare those bids and award them as appropriate. And that's happening across the board. The equipment that you see this evening that we're trying to get by, vertical turbine pumps and things like that, all those have been bid out to multiple vendors to try and be as responsible with the tax dollars as we possibly can. We've also hired an owner's representative, Hayes & Sawyer Engineers, to independently do estimating and to review the appropriateness of costs for all significant cost items. We're also trying to procure things early. One of the things we're seeing is these long lead times can lead to increased costs because you have to retain professional consultants longer, you have to pay more for job checks, and your general conditions get stretched out as your scope, not as your scope, but as the lead time grows and your project grows in length. We've also had to look at project scope adjustments. I mean, we're removing paving out of the project that we had hoped to do for dust control and providing better access to some of the sites, and we're just having to make some tough decisions. There's some existing work in the clarifier that we're going to put off that's literally a couple $1 million that we're proposing to put off for a couple of years and in hopes of getting better pricing later, or at least getting a few more years out of what's there. And there's some other whole host of smaller items that we're considering either eliminating from the scope or drastically reducing in size, things like site landscaping. And this is landscaping that's on the inside of the wall, so you're not going to see a reduction in what the public sees. But the site, if you've ever been out at Beardsley, is pretty sparse in places, and we're hoping to throw up a few trees and things like that. And so we're looking and evaluating whether we really should be doing that in these circumstances. And then there's continued value engineering efforts to make sure that, once again, we're being responsible with the dollars. So with the obvious headwinds in mind, it is still, staff's recommendation that you approve contract amendments for Phase 2A with MGC contractors as shown on the slide you see before you. Mayor and Council, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Councilmember Dunn?
So on the Exhibit 1 of the ARPA listing projects, the last line, it says contingency-related eligible costs of $1,334,851. Can you tell me what that is for, the contingency money?
I'm not familiar with the form you're referring to, so.
The one that was attached?
That's not part of
Mayor
my
and Council, I can, if I may, I apologize. That is a different agenda item, which Mr. Hallett will go through. He does have a very good explanation for the contingency related, and he'll be able to explain
It's
that to you.
connected to this, but a different speaker, is that?
I apologize.
So Chris Howlett will be addressing this part?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thanks.
So you will not be reducing capacity or what the end result of this expansion is going to accomplish. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. The city's growing, and this project needs to be completed to allow that growth to continue. And it's essential. It's an essential part of the services that we provide to our residents every day.
It is, absolutely is. We need to make sure that we stay as close to on time and on track as we possibly can with this. It's very necessary. So council, do I have a motion on item 13R?
Moved.
Second?
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Please vote. And it passes unanimously. Thank you. We will now move on to item 14R, which is Memorandum of Understanding, American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, Local 3282.
Great, thank you, Mayor and Council. The city and the AFSCME Labor Group have been working very closely on a new potential multi-year memorandum of understanding regarding wages and benefits. Council has been provided updates along the way on the progress made in negotiations. Christine Nickel, our Human Resources Director, will present the successful result of those negotiations tonight for a proposed MOU for Council's approval. I'll pass it to Ms. Nickel.
Thank you, Jeff. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. It's a pleasure to be before you this evening. Tonight, I'd like to provide you with an update on the meet and confer process, and I'm also happy to report that we have a proposed memorandum of understanding for your consideration this evening, as Jeff mentioned. To begin, I thought a bit of background on AFSCME would be helpful. AFSCME, or the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, represents over 440 employees in job classifications across the organization, providing superior public service in a variety of roles. Prior to and throughout the meet and confer process, the city and AFSCME have had an excellent working relationship. We're pleased to present you this evening with an agreement that we believe shows the City of Peoria's commitment to its employees and remaining an employer of choice, and AFSCME's commitment to continuing to provide superior public service to Peoria residents. The current agreement with AFSCME covered the time span of July 1st, 2018 through this year, June 30th, 2022. I'd like to take a moment to recognize the hard work of the negotiating team, and you'll see many of them here behind me. Without the hard work, I mean countless hours of researching, preparing, discussing, we would not be here this evening. For AFSCME, we have Walter Crenshaw, Eric McMurrow, Josh Capilla, Dennis Whitney, Tina Chedester, Gilbert Hernandez. Thank you all. For the city, we have myself, Kamalee Russell, Teresa Brenholt, and Claudia Hasbrook. Thank you very much for the hard work, the collaboration, and really the ability to come together and reach an agreement on a contract that will really put the employees and the city at the forefront. Very appreciative for it. By way of a little bit of the overview of the process, I think many of you are aware that the meet and confer process began informally last summer in 2021, when AFSCME and city representatives met to determine which job classifications would be included in the wage study. HR then conducted the wage survey, and AFSCME and city representatives met on and off to do general language cleanup, kind of talk through processes, some pain points and things, and we made a lot of progress and got a lot of good work done then. We then came before council in October with a joint presentation, AFSCME and the city, to city council, and really from October through the end of January, we met diligently and regularly, made a lot of progress, and came to a tentative agreement on January 27th of this year. Then the most exciting thing occurred. On February 11th, I was notified that AFSCME membership reached, they ratified the proposed agreement, so we're very happy about that. The next two slides cover some of the more significant items in the agreement. It doesn't cover everything, but I wanted to go over the things that really kind of stood out and we believe are going to make a big difference with the workforce. And this is a 3-year agreement. In year 1, there will be a top of range adjustment. And just to provide a little bit of context with that, each AFSCME job classification is assigned to a pay grade, and that pay grade has a designated pay minimum and pay maximum. With this top of range adjustment in year 1, the range maximum, if it's here, it will go to here. It's kind of an easy explanation, but you'll see an extension of the pay range. And this really does 2 things. It provides AFSCME employees with potential earning capacity, a wider pay range, more future pay increases. And it also helps maintain the city's employer of choice status by helping us remain competitive among the other Valley cities. Not again, sorry about that. Also in year 1, AFSCME employees will receive a one-time lump sum payment in the amount of $1,040 in recognition of superior public service. For each year of the agreement, AFSCME employees will receive a cost of living adjustment, or a COLA. And we believe that this is really important because it not only helps us kind of maintain pace with inflation, but it also provides pay increases to AFSCME employees the first payday of each fiscal year of the contract. And we believe that the pay increases that have been agreed upon throughout the contract are not only will keep, as I mentioned, will remain competitive, but also they're fiscally sustainable for the future. And finally, employees who are eligible will receive up to a 5% merit increase each year of the contract. Some other negotiated items, and this list is not all-inclusive, but they come with the MOU, and I think what's important to notice about these is AFSCME was in a 4-year contract, so that was 4 years that they were not coming to the table and negotiating. However, the other labor groups, we have 3 other labor groups, they continue to negotiate throughout those years, and so some of these items bring AFSCME back into alignment with our other labor groups. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. We are recommending that you approve item 14R, the Memorandum of Understanding with AFSCME for a 3-year term.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions? Yes, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I actually have a question for AFSCME. It has been the goal of this mayor and this council to be fair with all of our bargaining units, police, fire, PPOA, and of course AFSCME. And it's always been our goal to make sure that we, City of Peoria, is an employer of choice. Do you feel that this contract helps us reach our goal of allowing you to be, the city to be an employer of choice?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We do feel that it is, and it's a step in a positive direction. As far as we know, I mean, everybody's dealing with the same circumstances, trying to figure out what to do with the labor shortage and the projections in the future. So we believe that it is, and it's a good foundation and a basis to build off, and it's fundamental that it's passed, because as it unfolds, we'll be able to get some quantified results as we can look towards the future where the labor market's going and how we can adjust accordingly and be innovative. So we believe that nobody has a crystal ball, nobody can predict the future, but this gives us a basis to take care of our residents, to empower our employees, and to make sure the city of Peoria grows as a whole, together with everyone in conjunction with AFSCME and the city itself.
Thank you. Council, do I have a motion to approve item 14R? We have a motion and a second. Council, please vote. It passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item 15R is American Rescue Plan Act grant funding allocations.
Mayor and Council, the Council has previously approved the use of grant funding from the Federal American Rescue Plan Act allocations for various projects over the last 8 months. And with the direction from the federal government now for the allowable uses for those remaining funds, Chris Hallett, our Neighborhood and Human Services Director, will present on the current work plan and seek your approval for the expenditure for the remaining grant funds. Thank you, Mr. Hallett.
Thank you, Mr. Tyne, Mayor, Council. Proud to be here to be able to present a recommendation for our full allocation that we've been awarded to date. Just a matter of a little background, these stimulus funds came to us through the Treasury through a law signed back in March, allocating $1.9 trillion. There was a set aside for state and local fiscal recovery funds to be used by cities, and those allocated to the Arizona cities were determined by our Community Development Block Grant formula, and it was to be paid out into 2 installments in 2021 and 2022. Based on that formula, Peoria received an allocation of $20.7 million in direct aid, of which we received the first tranche last May of half of that, and we expect to see the second half this May, as early as this May. I came to you in June for approval. You adopted these categories based on kind of care categories, CARES Act categories, for staff to get moving forward with MOU scopes of work and getting the funds being spent out in serving our community. So I'll give you a quick update on those tranches. We did this last September, so this should look a little familiar to you. So the tranche 1 set aside are in bold. Those are the council approved. So of the $5.3 million set aside for revenue loss, that is a calculation set out in the act that needs to be calculated each calendar or fiscal year. Of the 5.3 set aside, we did calculate and report calendar year 2020's loss at 4.6 million and have reported that. For the 1.85 human and social services set aside, this lists the current list of projects that we are proceeding with. We talked earlier tonight about our utility assistance program, so we want some continuity of funding for that. Supportive housing for homeless, we brought to you already the iHelp and the Deep Within for approval. Fire department also sought paramedicine and vaccination support, and they're underway. They just started doing vaccines earlier this month. They did last Wednesday, and they're going to be out there again tomorrow, so we have a plan scheduled for them. Peoria Promise, I gave you a sneak peek of that. That will be coming back with our partners, the Glendale Community College and the Maricopa County College Foundation, to present on the March 22nd calendar or agenda. We are seeking to recruit a navigator, we spoke of that before, to get out there, and as well as an administrative position to help us get these services out to those most in need in our community, which is what the Act is intended to do. You see here end user broadband access support. That was down under the infrastructure before. The final rule came out, gave some more clear guidance on how these funds would be used, and it was expressly intended to be capital, last mile infrastructure, and we weren't sure the $500,000 set aside would get us much of anywhere. And working with the industry, we weren't able to foresee a project necessarily, given those parameters. Also knowing there's more infrastructure funds coming behind this that are going to have even larger set-asides for broadband and other infrastructure. So we wanted to focus this on working directly, using our navigator out in the underserved areas to get them from an end user access to the internet that way. And we feel we'll be able to better serve those most needing populations within our boundaries that way. We also see, vaccinations, continuation of what we talked earlier about Embry and others doing testing and vaccinations in our city. And then we wanted to be able to provide sanitation, supplies, PPE, and expand our homeless outreach provider, HOPE events that we do 3 times a year in partnership with our police department. In the healthy work environment, we had 1.49 set aside out of tranche 1. 100% of those have been underway. You've heard a lot about them, the air filtration devices we've done. We are seeking touchless doors, drinking fountains, et cetera, continue PPE and cleaning supplies. We had 1.16 million set aside for assistance for Peoria businesses. We're working closely with our community and economic development partners to establish job fairs and training programs for our small businesses and some of the target industries outlined in the Act. And then again, under the infrastructure, we weren't able to do the broadband, but also laid out in the Act is water, wastewater, sewer, and we knew for sure we'd be able to identify a project to meet that need. And it's in your detailed exhibit, which I'm going to do a summary of what's in your exhibit here for the audience, and certainly can address any questions. We'll try and anticipate any questions. Carmack here. So you see in the first column is the June approved categories that you all approved. Over the course of the time since then, we've learned a lot about each of these specific projects. We have ebb and flow of new projects coming in and some projects falling out. So we wanted to reconcile with what you knew and last approved. I put next to that the total allocation. So this is both tranches together. It's a full allocation, $20.77 million. As I mentioned before, we got our final rule, came out in January, so we got a little more guidance on how to proceed with these. Not major changes necessarily, but you'll see the numbers have expanded in different categories. So all the listed projects and activities I spoke of in the prior slides, these are the total recommended allocations by the categories you set aside earlier. And then how we spread them across Tranche 1 and Tranche 2. We realized quickly we weren't going to have enough money to just in Tranche 1 to exercise the projects we even identified in Tranche 1. So we haven't really added any more. There's a couple tweaks here and there, but this gives you the feeling of how we're going to fund it. We anticipate getting the second tranche as early as May. We're highly expecting that. What this shows, and again, your Exhibit 1, I think Councilmember Dunn held it up earlier. It's in your packet identifying the details, and what we're asking for is a recommendation to approve that as a document as we go forward fully. Just to answer the question about the revenue loss, so we have these categories, we have all the projects listed under each of the allocation categories. We have the revenue loss set aside, so that's one of the changes in the final rule was you can take a standard deduction. You know, everybody loves a good standard deduction, right? So we had to either calculate it based on actual revenues, or we could take the $10 million standard deduction. We took $4.6 million on the first year. We were anticipating another amount of calculation to get us near or possibly even under the 10 million. So we elected to just plug in the 10 million so we could then concentrate on all the other funds going outward to the community. So within the 10 million, we also have to identify and report what general government businesses we are going to use those funds for. If you recall, we came previously with fire, medical overtime, and police overtime, as was use of the 4.6 million. So within the others is listed on your chart for the revenue loss set aside. The gap, the one left over is that contingency line item. And if you note at the bottom of the exhibit, there's a number of notes that we have in there to help us as staff to continue to meet the funding needs of these projects and the reporting needs of the grantor by having some remaining funds on any of the category allocations that are unspent that could be dedicated towards the rent, mortgage, and utility program, which has an endless supply of need.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the others are project-based, and they're very specific, so they'll either come in at or under, or perhaps even over. Any of the remaining revenue recovery funds on those activities listed under the revenue recovery, which are our most flexible funding, it's akin to the CARES funding we receive through the state, would be reallocated to the COVID medical claims line item. That's another line item that is going to continue to have costs expended to it. Note 3 says city manager is to approve any contingency funds for any approved projects or activities cost overruns. So they already have to be on the list, and the city manager would be able to approve those. And then note 4 is any of the unspent contingency funds would come back to you, mayor and council, for approval for any new projects that are not identified on this document. So with that, we are here seeking recommendation of approval of the American Recovery Act grant fund allocations as outlined in the attached Exhibit 1 listing of projects. Be happy to answer
Councilmember
any
Dunn.
questions.
Just to clarify, so note 4, it says that City Council to approve use of unspent contingency funds. could we not have the contingency funds or cost overruns in the amount of $1,334,851 come back to council as well? Because I do know that, city manager has spending authority of $50,000, that's a lot, over $1 million. Can that also come back to council again? Does it have to be lumped in here as just unknown costs?
Mayor, Councilmember Dunn, this is really the unallocated funds we just put into a contingency fund for any and all needs. And what we try to do is set up some protocols that just helps it flow through fluidly. We certainly can modify any of the recommendation as you see fit here. Again, ultimately, anything that's not on the list would have to come back to council for approval.
Anything not on this list?
Correct.
Okay.
Or
then
any major changes.
Okay. The other thing is too, you have it used for fire overtime, correct? On the list that the ARPA money was put towards, is that correct?
Yes, Mayor, Councilmember Dunn, we previously brought that to council on our September action, I believe.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, because I was told that the overtime money, that the cost of overtime went down. And, that's what was told to me. But now I see how they got it to go down by using ARPA money. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Okay, so I know this is really difficult to understand, and the federal requirements of all of these things having to do with COVID are very stringent. Overtime amount doesn't go down. Paying for overtime would go down based on this. So I think that it takes a full-time job, I think, just to try to make sure that all of these things pass all of the federal credentials that they originally set forth. So thank you so much for being very, very careful and cognizant of all of those programs for each tranche. And with that, I will entertain a motion to approve the recommended American Recovery Program Act grant fund allocations as outlined.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. And it passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, the next item on the agenda is call to the public for non-agenda items, and I do have a speaker request form from Mr. Al Bell. If you would kindly go to the podium and state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes to speak, sir.
Good evening. My name is Al Bell. I live at 11982 West Lone Tree Trail in Peoria. I have a letter I would like to enter into the record. It reads thusly. Dear Mayor Carlett and council members, my wife Mary and I have lived here almost 15 years. Before moving, I sought to learn about Peoria. The answers were positive, and we located in Vistancia. Our expectations have been exceeded. You've been a major factor in that. While I do not know all of you personally, we do benefit from your collective leadership. I tell my friends that Peoria is a very well-run city. I know what that looks like. I have seen it, and the opposite many times. My frame of reference is a 47-year career in city and regional and strategic planning. You each dedicate a significant portion of your time to serving our community. That sets you apart from most citizens. Now, in the late winter of my life, I appreciate more fully how time is an irreplaceable asset. And we citizens enjoy the options we do, in part because you commit your time and energy on our behalf. I'm afraid too many citizens fail to acknowledge the value you add to our lives. We are far more interconnected than we tend to admit. Still, many of us do appreciate what you and your staff bring to our community. Is it perfect? No, of course not. This is, after all, planet Earth. Is it better? Consistently. Our city exemplifies what happens when enough people care, lead, and act to make a difference. Highly positive outcomes year after year are intentional, not accidental. Add to normality the abnormal COVID-19 pandemic, and the challenges of public service have reached new levels of complexity. Like the grocery clerk who never signed up for the front lines, public officials did not volunteer as virus fighters. Yet, here we are. Here you are. Once again, the resilience and responsiveness required to deal with crises end up as your challenge. I am here to applaud your enduring commitment to the people of Peoria. Please accept this expression of my profound respect and gratitude for your dedication. Sincerely, Al Bell, citizen. I'd like to close with a quotation from the legendary Studs Terkel. I think it fits. Heroes are not giant statues framed against a red sky. They are people who say, this is my community, and it is my responsibility to make it better. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for your kind words. Appreciate you taking the time to come and talk to us today. You made our day. All right, we will now move on to reports from the city manager. Mr. Tyne?
Thank you. Actually, no comments from me tonight. Thank you.
It's hard to follow, isn't
Yeah,
it?
exactly.
All right, how about reports from our youth council liaisons? Ms. Rodriguez?
Hello, good evening. I do have a little bit of some updates today. So currently, the board is working on Youth Government Day, and we have 11 schools already that are in support of us. In addition to, we've just had 2 volunteer opportunities. So we did St. Mary's Food Bank twice, the 4th and the 26th. And last but not least, we also had our very own adaptive needs program from Peoria come talk to the board and give us ideas on how we can support them and how we can volunteer for them. Because I know in the past we did volunteer for the Special Olympics. And in addition to, we also learned about what the city does to help people with adaptive needs. And I think it's really amazing, especially during the 4th of July when fireworks are very loud and people need a safe room for it to be quiet and something they can hold and touch. And I thought that was amazing. And those are my reports. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now, Youth Council Liaison Fierro.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This past Friday, as you all are aware, many of our members attended the Boards and Commission Appreciation event. And I just want to thank you on behalf of the Youth Advisory Board, thank the City of Peoria, and thank the Council for hosting that event. I know we all feel very appreciated, and it was so much fun. We loved it. And it was just a great experience, so I really want to thank you guys for that. As regards to our Washington, D.C. trip, we are to have a virtual meeting soon. And as soon as we get all the little details sorted out, then we can provide you with an actual update. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, it's been a very good night. And there being no further business, we are adjourned.